Okay, let's do some blocks. Diagnosed ADHD.
How hacky is that? It
It's
just
not- I
feels
mean,
it's. But I do have the
But-
benefit of
or
saying.
when did you get diagnosed?
Yeah. Okay. So this is this is why I feel a little bit legit, because I actually got
Justify this.
an official diagnosis. But I have to say, like I think a lot of people, I just had begun to suspect that some of the things I was struggling with in life might have this like overarching like rubric or organizing principle, and ADHD was sounding like kind of an interesting possibility. So I went to I had a neuropsychiatric evaluation and a very in-depth, like,
as an adult, fairly recently.
This was fairly recently.
Yeah.
And I received an official diagnosis of ADHD.
What did they do? Written, obviously?
Yes. Okay. So it was basically a full day of tests, and they're very kind of unusual tests because sometimes you can kind of tell what they're testing, other times you can't. But it was everything from literally like,
and you can shade your answers, like if you want to have something, you can kind of be like, I can't.
Yeah, right.
I'm powerless.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is funny because you're like, is the test designed to pick up on people who are trying to game the test and like trying to get an official diagnosis?
And you don't know.
I actually brought as much kind of like intellectual honesty as I could to the process because I really wanted some clarity and hopefully help down the road. But the questions are like, it's everything from these weird math problems and like spatial memory, geometry. Yeah. And then there's ones where they tell you like a little story and then ask you questions about it. And then they come back to that an hour later, ask you more questions about it after some other testing. There's some of it's visual. There's weird things like on an iPad where you're like tapping test results to test like your eye movement and things. There's one where that I felt was clearly sort of like autism, like social cue testing, which was like I think you either watch a video or listen to a recording of someone saying something and then like multiple choice kind of select their disposition. Are they angry? Are they curious? Are they, you sort of like, and that's clearly like a social cue testing. And a lot of it is with a test administrator who's sitting there talking to you. And then some of it was just like, traditional test taking, like timed things, but it was all day. And then they do all the sort of number crunching and over a couple of weeks. And then you come back in and they talk you through all your results and they say, and then this is what if this is our evaluation and ADHD is present.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Ding, ding. You win ADHD. And it was a crazy moment, actually.
Because you understood yourself better?
This is why it surprised me. I kind of was expecting, you hear about people saying, oh, I got the diagnosis, whether it's autism or Asperger's or ADHD. People say like just getting the diagnosis was so reassuring because I suddenly had a kind of pathway to understand this.
Trevor Noah said that.
And I think that's a very common thing. And I actually even expected that because I expected the diagnosis and I expected to feel that way. I think there was maybe a moment of that, but I actually felt scared and sad because I didn't know. It's like, I think that there was like this fleeting reassurance, but then it was kind of like, okay, now the work begins. Like I really do there really is something going on here.
What's the downside? Because I can tell you the upside from watching you, having directed you and watching you in other things. You're very good at playing hectic.
You're an idiot.
You're such a bad person.
Yeah.
You're very good at playing. You have ADHD.
Yeah.
You need answers.
Right.
It's good for the parts you've gotten, and it's good for the performances of like, I need this to be over. It has
Is
worked.
that the vibe I gave?
It has worked. It has
I
worked.
need this to be
just
over.
like you're good. You were very good at being amped.
That's the beauty of my career choice for my particular condition, I think.
Yeah.
My whole life is episodic. My whole professional life is episodic. And it allows me to just hyper focus on a project, on a character, on an episode, or on a film. Like everything is so sort of tight, and I can just like go all in, which I always have loved.
Yeah.
And then I move on to the next thing, which kind of addresses like my need for novelty and like constantly changing my environment. And
when you audition for The Daily Show or you audition for The Hangover, were you a good auditioner? Were you nervous?
I was a very good auditioner. Partly because I actually I did voiceovers for so long. And when you do voiceovers, you just go to thousands of auditions. And I just became this like killer at audition, at just the skill of auditioning, which is totally separate from the skill of comedy or the skill of acting. They're like, auditioning is its own skill set. And I just became like,
it's like being good at a standing long jump.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a track meet.
Yeah.
You're just like, I can do it right now.
Yeah. Or it's like being good at putting on your uniform. It's like kind of unrelated. Like, and then you go and do the thing well. Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. But if you can put your uniform on right, then like, I mean, that's not a good.
But no, metaphor, but you audition well for your audition for The Daily Show. You had to do a chat on the set. You know, John's watching somewhere.
Well, the first round of the audition was a cattle call at a casting agency that I'd been to hundreds of times. So I knew the casting agent. I knew the space. I knew everyone else. Not everyone else, but most other people auditioning. And it was huge. It was a big cattle call. It was like all over town, tons of people. But I also was a student of The Daily Show at that time. Like I'd been watching it every night and studying it and like, you know, kind of like practicing the that particular like sort of news cadence, which is very unique to news. And
myself with a hidden camera underneath my ball sack.
People sort of take for granted, oh, they're just talking. Well, it's actually a very specific way of talking. And this kind of dedication and focus, like, didn't exist anywhere else in my life. Anywhere else. Like I could not.
Did your parents or anyone
pay my
notice,
tax? Like my taxes were late every year. I couldn't deal with like a lot of basic life things.
Did you notice the difference? Were you like, I guess I'm like a fuck up, but not about this?
I noticed that I was very anxious about life responsibilities all the time. I was very anxious about, you know, getting things done that I needed to for the management of my life. Yeah. But I didn't, and I also was feeling very confident in my workspace, which again was not entirely earned, but it just was like this gut feeling. And that discrepancy, I definitely noticed. I was bothered by it. I was stressed out by it. And I think it did start to affect my work at a certain point.
The sloppiness or the laziness in other areas.
Well, yeah, or just the difficulty, the sort of the anxiety in other areas. Yeah. And that's when I think probably a couple of years into The Daily Show is when I first started going to a therapist to like, what is going on? And I don't think I saw a great therapist early on. So it was.
Yep. That's a thing that not enough people understand.
Yeah. And so I just was kind of spinning my wheels in that process. And, but it was, I also think even a bad therapist is good for you.
It's better than nothing.
It's definitely better than nothing,
Yes.
because a bad therapist will, unless they're actually giving you bad advice or telling you bad things, which this guy wasn't. He just was like kind of like a bump on a log. So,
Yes.
but it does force you to just articulate your fears and feelings and like in a way that really no other space kind of lets you do. And I just found tons of value in that, like just talking out loud, externalizing my fears or frustrations or what have you. That was, and it's why I'm always an advocate for therapy. And I'm also better than I was. Like, I've definitely chilled out over time. It's funny you were talking about like the sort of like amped up characters that I played in both on The Office and in The Goods and Stu in The Hangover. Like, I don't think I could play Andy at this point the same way. Like, I would make different.
Why?
It's not like all of that, like so much of the tension and I think anxiousness that I've held in my body and my confusion about the world around me was what I was kind of like purging through those characters. Like, like Andy was so bad at social cues.
Where are you going? You want me to come with?
That was just like me on steroids. Like, it was a way for me to kind of like, I think, laugh at and like externalize and laugh at so many of my own foibles and insecurities. And it's why also I tried to bring so much compassion to Andy, because it was important to me to endow Andy with like an intrinsic sweetness or an intrinsic goodness, because I sort of want that to be true about myself.
Do you find the aging, getting better at doing different kinds of parts? Other than just like you look older, you look
sure. I think my sort of interests have evolved, but and they've kind of evolved with in a way that I think is very organic for most actors. It's just like as you age and your life experience changes. So like having a family is such a dramatic change. Now I've now played a dad a couple of times and I love it. I loved like Rusty Griswold in Vacation. It was like one of the most joyful movie parts I've ever had the great luck to play.
We're the Griswolds, you piece of ass.
And then I just did this Jennifer Garner movie, Family Switch for Netflix, big Christmas movie. So fun, like just joyful parenthood comedy. I would have definitely rolled my eyes at that 20 years ago, but I'm thrilled by it now.
It's funny, and you have a history podcast. Do you know what I mean? Like the stuff where we all age, and then you go. If I heard that you would have written yourself off.
Yes.
Like, what are you, David Halberstam?
Right.
You're like a historian now, but you age and go, yeah, I don't care about the shit I cared about.
Yeah.
I just don't. I can't convince myself, and I just have to admit, like, I have old taste.
Exactly.
I play older, like, because I don't.
I'm older.
Yeah, you're never gonna. It's 15 years ago, you might have gone on a bachelor trip to Vegas.
Yes.
And now you are never going to do that.
Right.
Unless it's with the cast of The Hangover for
for
money.
A second or third marriage.
Yes.
For somebody.
For money. So I'm forgiving you for aging.
Thank you.
Hey, did you like that? Did you like that? Yeah, did you like it though? You want more? Don't want to work? Would rather watch videos of me grab-assing with people? First of all, go up here to subscribe, and then go up here to watch more clips. This is like when the weatherman says that there's a high pressure system coming in. I'm not really used to the green screen.